Hello, welcome back. It's Sunday, the 11th day, 2026. Another Prime Minister's gone in Japan. Nato Khan, who was there when Fukushima went down. You know, he did have pains of conscience, right? He did speak out. Remember a couple of years, 5-6 years ago, all the media chased him and another prime ministers, former prime ministers, who had spoken out about radioactive fallout from Fukushima in comparison with a nuclear renaissance, and then media worldwide came out and bludgeoned them, basically. But they got carried, they got coverage. Meta announces a landmark agreement for new nuclear with TerraPower, Oklo, and Vistra, and 6.6 gigawatts. Now, these are all small modular reactor companies. They don't have a product. So he's going to put the money into it, but I think it's just because the industry is so powerful, right? We're going to cover that and more. We're going to kick off with a video. I put a link in the description for you. James is focusing on some pretty tough subjects. Like hot cell isotopes. He ain't going to get any friends making videos like that. Nuclear industry is paying attention. That's what I mean by that. Fukushima radio cesium. This was a studies. I'm going to have to download these because I can't use a lot of footage because it's copyrighted, and I'm afraid I know how the industry hates my guts. We're going to kick off with this video and song to kind of explain the video. It's very unique. And then I'll be right back. I'm a bit slow tonight. I know what you're saying, Dana. You're always slow. Yeah, well, I'll be right back. Right after it turns the sound back on, then I'll be back after that. Might as well check to make sure it's high quality. Ooh, it's only in 360. Good call.
They said it worked, they said it.
It must be really good if they're cutting it off.
It held together cities. They said it made things last. They knew what it did, they kept using it anyway.
Right, you're doing the same thing you done with lead, where you just lied to you.
Before anyone counted who would reach first. It was in the paint before anyone agreed who should be protected. Explanation stayed calm. Nothing collapsed, nothing exploded. It just stopped making sense to continue. The benefit didn't disappear, the harm didn't vanish. The argument ran out of room. No tribunal, no apology, just agreement without ceremony. If it happened to lead, it can happen to nuclear. If it happened Just a moment where the defense is no longer required.
Awesome. So, like, they've done this with tobacco, but lead is the best example because they put it everywhere. And they poisoned everybody. We're still digging up lead pipes everywhere worldwide, right? For instance, so like that's getting into, you're drinking the water, you're washing your clothing, and you're getting showers, and you're scrubbing your food in it. Let's jump right after it, if that's possible. And what's criminal, man, is I only got 3 likes on that song, in that video, all that work, in 18 hours. Got a fun show for everybody tonight. Still don't mind me signing. I tell you, see what I got. Meta signs 3 nuclear power deals. January 11, 2026. I got 12 people. Holy shit. Where'd everybody come from? They're messing with me. Meta announces landmark agreement for new nuclear. Landmark agreement for new, what do you, like, for a social media company. It's a very confusing, Zuckerberg is very confusing. Doesn't want anything to do with being a front man, but you can't get him away from the camera. He's buying the biggest toys out there you can buy. He's digging bunkers just to create a little backup for himself. Meta announces landmark agreement for new nuclear. Are you going to go down there and recycle some of that stuff, Mark? There's no small modular reactors. But what it is, he's got a big footprint out there, and so investors will see that. Will see that, and they'll automatically. That's the dream. That's the big hope, right? 6.6 gigawatts is. Should he can do that with geothermal and have it up and running in a couple of years? Right? Like there always got to be this reinforcement of the small modular reactor narrative, which is simply not true, right? Because you don't have any, you got all these companies, they've been at it for, well, since nuclear existed, trying to create this unicorn of the nuclear industry, I would imagine. Because nuclear, the technology they're using is the wrong technology, right? The nuclear and fission and fusion are creating elements that there's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger that can defend against the emissions. And so that's a foreign object in your body attacks with white blood cells. So in order to keep the investors happy and on the hope, right? Because you put all their money into that and they need a return, right, to exist. But the nuclear industry can't exist unless it steals that money. So whoever's investing in it is in a pretty rotten position. Because you haven't got a reactor and you need the money to keep the fake hope alive. They're not trying. Or they're incompetent, one or the other. Fukushima reactor leak plugged with liquid glass. What's that? Well, that's another fantasy. You got nuclear meltdowns, and he said they used a mixture of sawdust and newspaper, concrete, and liquid glass. And he fixed it. Look at it. Well, it didn't work, so they got the media to come out and say that they fixed it, that they were there.
My understanding is on top of what used to...
It actually covered the whole planet. we're going to jump into the show right away here, but I just want to riddle me this for a minute. So you got Fukushima Reactor 3 alone is worse than all the nuclear meltdowns in history combined. You had 4 of them in a row, 8 reactor cores on top of each building, and they are gone. Let's be friggin' clear about that. It doesn't look like this, it looks like that.
My understanding is on top of what used to be reactor
and as a
building
result
number
of that, the whales, for instance, are not dying by ship strikes because since 2007, there's only 1,200 reports. Not every whale would have died. But since Fukushima, every whale is showing up. And I laugh, and that's the gallows laugh. Wait till you see something I got for you that weekend. Holy shit. So this was, and this is still holy shit, trust me. The Bride's whale, don't forget that guy. That's a gray whale. They're almost extinct now. That's a humpback, believe it or not. Well, that's a Bride's whale, believe it or not. No, it's actual whale. It doesn't matter what kind of whale it is. That's an actual whale. Yes, it's hideous looking. All of these. The whale up in the top corner is missing 300,000 pounds. It's 100 feet long, so it looks pretty impressive, right? But it's actually missing 300,000 pounds. I'm being generous in saying that emaciated carcass is 80,000 pounds, because that's what they would weigh, 380,000 pounds. He's supposed to be 8,800 pounds, that Bride's whale, and it's only 1,800 pounds at best. You can see the shoulder blades, the rib cages. You can see that the body is just the bones. That, actually, would look like that in the right scenario within a week or two. Now, this is the weekend's collection. That's missing 350,000 pounds. The blue whale behind me. That humpback whale up there, look at the rib cages sticking out. The gray whale, but look at this Bride's whale. Holy shit, folks. Holy shit. That's, this is horrifying, trust me. And they only released this one grainy picture. This was a couple of months ago. That was 2 days ago. All the biggest animals now, 14 years down the road. It's 14 years ago. Yeah, it's 14 years ago. We're in the middle of an extinction event, and everybody's just in denial. Something's supposed to weigh 380,000 pounds, and at best it maybe weighs 30,000. But let's be generous. Say it weighs 80,000 pounds. Where's the other 300 pounds? How long did it take with no food? All of these whales eat the same basic food, right? And they're all showing up emaciated. This was 3 days ago. This is a Bride's whale. So I would love to see that quality in this picture right here. You would see this. You would see the exact same attributes. You can kind of see it. Right? You can see it now. Right? You can see the spine over there. It's just the bones is all that's left. Like we talk about peanut heads and shoulder blades, but this is absurdness. But then this one really does it. But this is 2016 story. The 7,000 whales starved to death. This was just humpback. What about all the other species? Yeah, they starved to death too. And NATO clan, in his own little way, and a few other prime ministers try to warn you. Meta signed a 3-year nuclear power deal. That'll get rid of the rest of those stupid-looking whales anyway. Just bear with me here. Here we go. Strap yourselves in and hang on to it. Just wrap your mind around this. Let me get out of the way. Let me just zoom in a little bit. I got another video ready to go, unfortunately. I'm just going to move down his, give me a second, I'll do the zoom. Oh, right there, yeah, here we go. Holy shit, eh? Nothing but bones. He was alive. Shit, look at that. Holy shit, man. No blubber, no muscle, no fat reserves. It's 3 days ago. I think the nuclear industry, I think they're probably going to do something drastic. There's probably going to be a significant war or something, a radioactive fallout, and then they can blame down the road, they can lean on that for an excuse maybe, or, all the gray whales are going to be emaciated. Well, not emaciated, but they're all emaciated as of last year, before they headed north. When they got south, they were clearly emaciated last year. When they headed to Baja, California, the gray whales, the remainder, 14,000 died. It's over that now. That was the statistics from 2024, I think it was. I'm quoting. We have documented. I can bring to the table right now. If we choose to go down that road. Well, let's bring that in, actually. Because otherwise it's not real, right? That's how it gets treated anyway. For a lot of people can't wrap their mind around it. That doesn't mean it's not freaking happening. And I'm doing my best to help you. Yeah, you can't type the word. You can't type in whale or emaciated. My system becomes check the dictionary of 15 years. So this was 2016. 2016. Let me get back over it. Because I have to use this. Doesn't matter. Okay, so this was 2016. This was on top of an unusual mortality event that was already declared, okay? Starvation. What year is it again? 2026, right? Food chain got broken right away is what I'm trying to tell you. Gray whale die-off fear the starving whale. But the ocean's big, but it ain't that big because they need a lot of food each day. They're eating 2,000 pounds of krill a day. And they can last a long time, clearly. That's absurd that that's 4 pictures from the weekend that I put together. And like this one is 3 months ago, for instance. That kind of, we've been at this quite a long time, but that really drove the point home. Okay, so this was April the 18th, last year, 2025. So 8 months ago. As starving whales migrate north, gray whale die-off. I've lost 14,000 pre-Fukushima, post-Fukushima. Thousands of gray whales now migrating north from Baja, California are in such poor shape. They had no surviving calves made it to Baja, California, by the way. Researchers believe their poor condition is due to changing feeding conditions. No, it's an extinction event. You can't say it, though. The whales are already in poor shape, so they need something. This is... the gray whales are going to disappear before... I don't think they'll make it back to Baja, California. They're all emaciated, as you're going to see. When they begin their 12,000... They're already emaciated when they begin their 12,000-mile migration to Baja, California, right? So they got there last year, and... They had like 80 calves. None survived the last trip. They have 80 calves. They're all showing up emaciated in different places they don't normally go through along their 12,000-mile migration. The whales we're seeing are extremely emaciated. And remember, they all eat the same food at the same time. It's not there. And they've never encountered this. We've never seen. The ocean was a soup of life, for goodness sakes. I almost want to cry. Bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shore. So when you can look out and make that assertion that even from the shore, they're clearly emaciated, and then because you're looking at stuff like this, you're looking at stuff like that, right? You're looking at stuff like this. You can see it. It doesn't look like a whale anymore, right? This was 3 days ago. This is a prize whale. I mean, 3 months ago we had this one show up in India, and they, but we know in 2016, all the whales were showing up disappearing from starvation. There was, and it wasn't just those 2 species, as clearly, like the biggest species on top of that are with the most blubber, the most fat, the most muscles, the most. And so the ocean can carry you, believe it or not, even though you're severely emaciated. The ocean has that unique. So nobody in history has ever seen anything like this. And you're watching the end of it now. So you need a big distraction, you need a big war, a big event, another lockdown, or you need an event that's going to change the world in the direction they need it to go, which is they're panicking. They want all these small modular reactors. They want artificial intelligence because they figure that's the only thing that can save them at this late stage of the extinction event without annihilation. They need the small modular reactors to have their well, they do have reactors under the earth already, right? On the east coast of the United States, they have a military base deep underground, very deep underground. If you never heard tell of DUMBs, deep underground military bases. The whales we are seeing are extremely emaciated. So they're all eating at the same time. They're bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shore. And this last 8-9 months or something, everything we're seeing now is flat, it's emaciated. Every species. I got a story of the weekend where they're saying like it had krill in its stomach, so it was probably okay. And then you look at the pictures, you're like, how do you even sleep at night? Let's get back to small modular reactor fantasy land. You need these stories because the investors are ripe, right? The industry's been looting the investors since Fukushima, right? The stocks all dropped down. People lost their shirts who were invested heavily in it, and they wanted their money back. And they had control of the medias, the help of the medias. And all these worthless stocks you can give to medias and government people as an incentive to increase the stock's value, right? They get it for nickels. After Fukushima, there was 500 mines went under right away. Some of them hung on for a couple of years, but they all went under. Facebook parent Meta's reached nuclear power deals. Yeah, of course you did. It's called Memorandum of Understanding. But there is no product. Those 3 companies, for their artificial intelligence data center, and then, of course, Geothermal, screaming at them. The nuclear industry is dying, too. And it's trying to remain relevant, and it's doing that with 100 companies of small modular reactors and 100 companies, give or take a dozen, of fusion. And there's new ones coming, new ones, and other ones going under all the time. And they're buying and trading, surviving on patents. There's people go under these solar patents. That's a commodity that an up-and-coming candidate for the stock market scam, which is highly coordinated by the stock market itself. They're all in on it. But 46 million migratory birds here are missing. That would make news if they showed up somewhere else, I can tell you that. But we know there's no excrements on the cliffs, so they're like, it's been a rough couple of years. But we got it on the trail, which is against all odds, and there's no bird tracks out there, no animal tracks. There's no rabbit tracks out there, in a place that was supposed to be one of the most pristine places imaginable. And then here they brought in, there's 500,000 people, they brought in 380,000 invaders and gave them welfare and everything else, and the provinces are already bankrupt, right? So how do you think that's going to play out? Now the electricity rates apparently just doubled. So my bill in another week is going to be brutal. I won't be able to pay it. Facebook parent Meta has reached nuclear power deals with 3 companies but for a product that doesn't exist. So yeah, their stocks go up because Facebook and TerraPower, Oklo, and Vistra have a big footprint, right? They have a big footprint in the public relation firms. And Meta's one of the best, obviously, right? So they'll sell whatever stocks they want to sell. That won't be an issue. And everything will look fancy, but nothing's going to come to fruition, but that's acceptable. They've done this like 2 years ago, the same bloody thing almost. It's meant to jumpstart the winter months, so a lot of the Ponzi scheme that's being run out there it's just a lull in their time. Let's go out and destroy the ability of other resources to show up, like geothermal. Meta announces Prometheus, I can't even pronounce that, I apologize. Not really. Which will be a 1 gigawatt cluster. That's right. That's the right word too, cluster. Across multiple data centers. Why do you need all these data centers? All of a sudden, worldwide, the price of electricity has gone up everywhere, including here now, because the data centers, they don't have another source of electricity. So this story is also meant to prop up. And the more you create, the more now the price of electricity will rise for everybody. It's like having a war, and then commodities go up. But this, the Ukraine war caused commodities, the price of gas and everything just to skyrocket right away, for instance. That causes transportation to rise dramatically, which is for all that freight and everything. The price of that is inflated to cover their alleged the cost of fuel. Now the price of fuel down here went down to right now it's $1.36 Canadian a liter, which is super low. But the price of electricity here, the reason electricity went up before was because the price of gas was so high. Now that the gas is going down, they almost doubled it, because I guess they can't count on Russia and Ukraine to keep the artificial inflation going, right? Meta announces it will build a 1 gigawatt cluster spanning multiple data centers, but they don't have them right now. They're going to go ahead and build them, but they don't have the power to do it. And so that's going to drive up the grid, the price of electricity for the people that built it, whose families, which are all hard, the communities and everybody else, which has been invaded now by an influx of people who don't like you, don't like your country, want to take over your country, doesn't want to assimilate to your country, doesn't want to learn your language, committing crimes, dependent upon the system because there's not enough jobs to support them. They brought in 380,000 people where there's 500,000 people and 280,000 jobs. You got 280,000 jobs you brought in and you're forcing them to work. So the majority of the jobs are gobbled up right away by people who then only hire their own, right? And just took over everything now. Less than 2 years. Same thing in England, same thing in Australia. They're doing the same thing across the United States. And it's not, the system not set up to support that displaces the local indigenous population. And then all hell breaks eventually, right? There's a lot of hard feelings. There's a lot of, right, they're not used to it, never seen it before. Now all their communities are being saturated with people that don't even like them and that they're not compatible with North American society. And their country, they live in filth, and so they want to do the same fucking thing over here. The 3 deals will support 6.6 gigawatts of new and existing clean energy by 2035, Why does it take that long? Why is that important now? Why would anybody give a shit now? You should have seen the headlines about that today. It's meant just to artificially inflate stocks. So people who worked hard for their money all their life invest in it, and 2 or 3 weeks later, the stock starts falling. They lose a large percent of their investments, and they're forced to just walk away with what they got. This is a pump and dump. It'll also buy more than 2.1 gigawatts of energy from 2 operating nuclear plants in Ohio. So it wants that right away, and the result of that will be high electricity rates for the homeowners. They won't be able to leave a single light on unless they're walking through the kitchen and the light's on the other side so they can turn it off again. They won't be able to afford to have electricity. There'll be just an absurd amount of disenfranchised people won't be able to afford to eat and have electricity, and there was no need of it. This artificial intelligence on top of that is meant to just totally enslave you before the world wakes up. So as the world's starting to wake up, there's something, or they're terrified. I don't know, they got a pretty good rep on the media. We're not seeing any awakening in my end. No awakening over here. I got 12 likes and 14 views, 14 people in my show. Bless your hearts. Nasty Dana gave me a thumbs down. Damn you. Just kidding you. Your moderator is a good guy. I'm just carrying on. Should there be special teams of prosecutors to prosecute the pro-nuclear scum for crimes against humanity? Well, it's not asking very much, is it? Throw the scum in jail? It's not a big deal, is it? That's what's supposed to happen. That's what should happen. In a normal world, that's what would happen. In the countries the invaders are coming from, they would just beat them to death and drag them in the streets and put a tire on their neck and set them on fire, right? We're actually civilized. We just want them to go to jail for life. They get 3 meals a day, 3 squares a day. Your company. They make good towel boys, those guys. There are 2 ways for tech companies to invest in nuclear disease factories right now. One is to buy power from traditional reactors that are already built, so if they buy the power from them, then that means the price of electricity goes up for everybody else that needs power. All the people that built the whole system for decades and decades and generations, they paid for it all. With their light bills. Big shot company comes in now, steals everything, drives up the prices of everything, don't give a shit about it, takes your data because you're complaining, then weaponizes it against you with artificial intelligence. It is going to end really good. In a couple of years, your whales will be gone. They're in for a shock. They're in for a shock next year. Or this year, I'm sorry, this is 2026. I think we're all in for a big shock of what's going to trickle in to Baja, California, and what it's going to look like. Well, I showed you some pictures of what it's going to look like. What does they look like it now? One is to buy power from traditional reactors, either by purchasing electricity from the plants directly or financing the reconstruction of decommissioned units. So this is desperation now, like reconstructions of a Yeah, all right. Well, this old it's brittle and it's all supposed to be closed down because it's not safe. That's why they closed it down in the first place. We'll just spend a few bucks on it and we'll call it okay. Here's some money. Here's a suitcase. Go sign the paper. The other is to invest in one of the dozen reactor startups promising to commercialize design and technologies never before used in an American market to generate electricity. Promising to commercialize designs. They've been doing it for 50 friggin' years. Next year. Like the minute they say it's going to take 10 years, 20 years, then nobody's going to fund it. They got to say it's always next year. The other is to, I know one of the medias in British Columbia had wrote a story about me to demonize me. And because I had the audacity to go and do research expeditions for 6 years or 5 years, 9 months, whatever the hell it was. The other is to invest in one of the dozens of reactor startups promising to commercialize designs and technologies never before used in the American market. It's not used because it doesn't exist. Not the American market, it's any other market. Right, so that's a blatant, and we see this so constantly, right? You can't keep up with the laws, but there's no bones to this. Meta announces landmark agreement for new nuclear. They done that 2 years ago, and then 2 years before that, 2 years before that, 2 years before that. We covered it every single time. Making it one of the most significant corporate purchases of nuclear energy in U.S. history. So that was meant to artificially inflate the stocks for the small modular reactors, this is a Ponzi scheme straight up. Again. And everybody's in on it. The non-regulatory agencies they're the captured regulatory agencies. There's on both sides. It's the same people. State-of-the-art data centers and AI infrastructures are essential to securing America's position as a global leader in artificial intelligence, as a global leader in self-enslavement. We got to give AI all of whatever they want, all of our electricities, all our water. They need an enormous amount of water. And we got to tolerate whatever they want to do. They can do whatever they want. They can take all of our data and do whatever they want to it. Weaponize it, which of course is the ultimate outcome is always to weaponize it, and at the speed they're going. And then the robotics. Did you see CES 2026? Robots? Holy shit. And DARPA's project, Boston Dynamics, which eventually was sold to Google, right? That's because they took the key technology underground. And that doesn't mean they didn't leave incredible foundation there, right? And so their current robot changes its batteries. It can run for 4 hours, very powerful. So it can pick up 110 pounds in construction, and then they're just taking it into the auto industries, like 30,000 of them. And that's the idea of the software. They're even acknowledging it anyway. The robot, as long as you build a robot to a certain specifics, all you got to do is put that chip into it, and it can do all those tricks, and it can learn new tricks constantly just by software with pinpoint accuracy. So theoretically, it can get hacked worldwide, and there's a target rate, a kill shot painted on you. When they look at you, all you see is a kill shot, and they just need one shot, they'll kill you. And you'll take out some of them, but you won't be able to take them all out. But that's all you need, right? And then you got the drones. You got Eric Schmidt making 400,000 drones a month to ship to give to for next to nothing to Ukraine, so they can strap a bomb on it. Everything's in place, so good to go. And go and chase down somebody's loved ones that was jacked off the streets and put out in the field in a suit with a gun. Doesn't have no concept. And then just chase them around until they're worn out, and then go and blow them up. Just, you see so many of the, up on BitShare, you see the videos. I got a collection of 1,000, I've lost track actually, around 1,000 anyway, of the drones just chasing people down and blowing them up. And so the tally's in now for sure, right? So you put artificial intelligence with that, it goes out and says, well, it's got a suit on, it's got a gun. Doesn't even matter, it's got the suit on and it's in that area. Just chase it around and blow it up. And AI will learn that job really quick. And every other drone you sent out will have the exact same software. I'm sorry, that's what they're already doing. Now, double turbocharge that and give it AI, hook it up to the wireless satellite system. You know, I like to say is, no matter how far underground they dig their cities, we can still dig a hole through the ceiling and submerge it. State-of-the-art data centers, AI infrastructure are essential to destroying your country. Not a global leader. And how can you call it clean when it's the dirtiest technology in human history? It needs 2 gas, oil, and coal plants just to run the site. It needs copious amounts of electricity to run that site. Nuclear can't run on its own power. I'm only going to tell you 500 more times. Here we go. So let me grab this. Yeah, well, let me grab, here you go. You can't call nuclear clean. That's outrageous. You know, once you take it out of the reactor core, it's sitting outdoors in a pool with no containment, splitting atoms for millions of years. So instead of boiling water for 1 million homes, it's splitting atoms to destroy 1 million people a day. Power restored near nuclear, largest nuclear plant after Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. The connection, they got connected by external power supply route via one of the power plant's 2 remaining external power lines. 330 kilovolts is enough to power 100,000 to 500,000 homes. They need that to come in to run these massive sites. You know, to pump the water for a single reactor is 71-ton pickup trucks a minute of water. 1,000 liters in the back of each one. 70,000 liters a minute. Think of 70,000 or 71-ton pickup trucks. A second. You need 4,500 a minute. You need 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks in 24 hours to go through those facilities. So, nuclear power plants require reliable off-site electricity to cool the reactors and spin fuel, but to run the entire site. And those tall, skinny stacks, they're for venting from the fuel pools, which are splitting atoms directly into your environment. Let's go back to that story. So they call it clean. See that? Clean, clean. So clean, you got to put it everywhere. That's how the lie works, apparently. Facebook parent Sprout, this is a crazy story. Power nuclear revival. They're avoiding using the word renaissance, right? There is no nuclear revival. There's no nuclear renaissance. Excuse me. Facebook parent Sprout Power nuclear revival. Meta-nuclear power commitments come as Canadian Investments Trust Sprout this week disclosed new purchases of physical uranium for its dedicated fund. So Sprout Physical Uranium Trust, that's the directional name, isn't it? Is a speculator that bought uranium stocks or uranium iron ore here in Canada. They raised the money and it was like $36 a pound. And so by buying it, you created a glut, not a glut, but a demand for the mining companies to produce uranium. Because up to this point, with the decrease of nuclear, with all the reactors shut down, say in Japan and other countries shutting down permanently, very little coming online, next to nothing a year. And this created a profit, right? Because people thought, oh, well, they didn't know what happened. They didn't know Sprout done that. Uranium Physical Trust done that. They just knew that there was a demand for uranium, so the media spun it and put all these small modular reactor stocks in front of them. And they've been losing brutal money ever since. And so they keep this, they're hooked on this high and low routine. It's so easy, right? And you just got to get all the banks and all the investment firms to, which is easy. It's the best way they can make money is do that. But just don't tell the plebes what you're doing, right? Meta new power commitments come as Canadian Investment Trust Sprout this week disclosed new purchases of physical uranium for its dedicated fund, which is going to create an artificial, at the same time as Facebook comes out and says they're going to buy all this nuclear power plants, and that is going to create a big demand, right? So they're going to buy up another chunk of the uranium that was sitting out there for next to nothing. Extend the life of 3 nuclear power plants. They're going to buy 300,000 pounds of energy metal, uranium, after buying 1,000 pounds of physical uranium last Friday. And on Thursday bought another 200,000 pounds to bring the total holdings to 75.5 million pounds. But they're not going to release that into the market. They're just hanging on to it. So now the mining companies have to produce uranium. So now the investment companies and everybody else and the banks and that are going to tell the investors, look at this stock here, uranium mines. They got big orders in. Facebook is going to build all these reactors too. They got the big companies in their pocket. They got Bill Gates there. They got Mark Zuckerberg in the pictures. They got all the right names. They got the Sam Altman in there. The spot uranium price was flat Friday at $82 per pound, which is massive compared to just a couple of years ago. Though still high, and the reason it's climbing up is because Sprout Uranium Trust is not going to offload. They're creating this artificial incentive, right? And their commodities, the prices are never going to go down. It's uranium, right? It's good. But what it does is when you correlate it with like Facebook, Meta, putting an order in, and then all the people who are reading these stories are not going to be coming here and watching my stuff. I got 10 people in my show. Hated, feared, and scorned. Recent nuclear projects around the world reflect that trend. Recent nuclear projects, I don't name them. A new facility is typically coming online 6 years late and at double the initial estimate cost. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part. Typically coming online 6 years late at double the initial estimated cost around the world. After being roughly flat for years, demand for power by data centers is projected to surge 175%. So they got to say, right, to the communities, don't worry, we got other reactors that are coming online. Your prices will go back down. Right, fall back on for the media. Will surge 175% by 2030 from 2023 levels. Ontario, which uses the most nuclear power in Canada, Canada is just a degenerate, is planning 4 300 megawatt small modular reactors at Darlington. How can you call a 24-story building a small modular reactor? How does that actually work? How does that actually work? I wonder. All the whales are so emaciated they don't even look like whales anymore. Bear with me. Here it is, Canada's small modular reactor. It's 35 meters tall. I'll bring it up for you now. It's 35 meters up and 38 meters below the ground. 10 stories up and 11 stories down. Have you ever been 11 stories underground? Neither is nuclear. But it's still going to be 10 stories above the ground. Well, but when you do the numbers on it, you're talking about, it's a 240-foot building. So it's a 24-story building. The reality of it is. I didn't put the math in there for some reason, sorry. Well, there's 3 small modular reactors worldwide, Dana. I know what you're saying. You're saying the Russians, which is like a 15-story building. I don't know how deep it is, but it's pretty high. The Canadian over there, the 300X, volume BWRX 300 Canadian small modular reactor, is a 24-story skyscraper. And China's new small modular reactor, that's it right there. And all those buildings behind it, and all the land around it. There's nothing small about any of them. They're massive skyscrapers. So when Canada comes out and says, or they use Canada's small modular reactor as a catalyst for people to invest in them, it's pretty dishonest. Or for Facebook or Meta or whatever they call themselves this time or next time. Building new nuclear plants is fundamentally different to refurbishing the existing ones, involving greater complexity, new regulatory framework, and engineering challenges. The Darlington Small Modular Reactor, which is to your far left, is a 24-story building, is 240 feet. Will also be the first grid scale built in G7 country. Oh, gee, oh, wow. Will also be the first grid scale build in a G. So they don't have a small modular reactor. All they have is these skyscrapers, and they're calling them small modular reactors because the investors will never listen to me or see me or hear me. Something rational. They won't see the evidence, right? That's their only 3 small modular reactors. These are not small, and they're not. If the truth comes out, they're done. A 300 megawatt small modular reactor. And on top of that, they got to run it on plutonium X oxide fuel, which they don't make. They don't have access to it. And they ostracized the only country that does make it, which is Russia. Right, high essay. Building new nuclear plants is fundamentally different. Refurbishing existing ones. New regulatory frameworks, engineering challenges. So they're going to build small modular reactors. Will be the Darlington small modular reactor, as I showed you, is a 24-foot skyscraper. So there is no. Will also be the first grid scale built in a G7 country. It's a good story. Oh, there's no such thing as a good story when it comes to nuclear, unfortunately. But this is a good story where somebody actually was very thoughtful. I'm very appreciative of it. NH urged to probe the health impacts near Seabrook nuclear plant. From 2010 to 2013, I lived in the Marshall Islands. Between 2015 and 2020, I returned to conduct research. Worked with the communities and the suffering from the impact of the policy decisions made decades ago, thousands of miles away by people they've never met or ever seen, part of the legacy of the U.S. nuclear superpower. From 1948 to 1946 to 58, the United States tested 67 nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands. And generations later, the Marshallese people are continuing to deal with the aftermath, including cancer and struggles with pregnancy, complicated by radiation-related birth defects, congenital malformations. This should never be back there, right? It's a study from 2019 on the Marshall Islands. It kind of tells the story. That's the study, go look it up. Radioactive fallout from the testing program contaminated a huge swath of land and the ocean extending over 1 million square kilometers, which severely impacts the habitability of the affected atolls. That's being pretty polite, right? Way to say it. But you contaminated over 1 million square kilometers even in 2019. And so this lady has done some research herself. She's running in politics too, I believe. Yes, she is actually. Living in the Marshall Islands offer a lesson for half-life in more than a scientific term. It's a metaphor for the ways reckless policymakers can rob generations of the right to a full and vibrant life. It's a very political correct way of talking about it. I didn't have to travel thousands of miles to learn the lesson, though. An activist who waded into the marshes of the Seabrook, Hampton, before I was born, worried about the risk posed by the nuclear radiation right here on the seacoast. A recent study led by researchers at Harvard, we covered it, found that living closer to nuclear disease factors is associated with higher cancer rates. And we criticize that because there's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. Alzheimer's, dementia, autism climb like a rocket within 100 miles. And with risk increase with age, decrease in the further from the plant that people live. The study examined data from 7 nuclear power plants located within 120 kilometers of Massachusetts zip codes, including Seabrook Station in New Hampshire. Right, so there's incredible clusters of cancers down here. There. Well, I'm calling on the state of New Hampshire, the universities of New Hampshire, which are pro-nuclear, to promptly review the study and conduct an independent assessment of cancer and other potential health impacts. Which, if you go and do the study, not just you want to do cancer for sure, but heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, and then by proxy, you want to look. Because the people that are living there are producing radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells forever because their thyroid is saturated and their bones are, right? So the gammas, the alphas never go away. They're at their pulse and energy at the speed of light every second. So when you're producing, and the children that are developing, the species and everything else with, generational development, reproduction, I'm also calling on the Trump administration to halt efforts to weaken nuclear safety oversight to ensure that health risk monitoring keeps pace with plant operations and scientific evidence. When the government fails to proactively protect public health, families, and are left to carry the uncertainty, that's why I'm running for Congress. I'm the mom, a teacher. I believe the children deserve to grow up with confidence in the air, water, it's brutally contaminated now with radioactive fallout, are being safeguarded based on science, not untested assumptions or empty assurances. Right, so to kind of understand, we see that a lot in the academic world where there are some good people out there, but it's impossible for them to see the bigger picture for some reason. So when you get over 1 million square kilometers, people shouldn't be there. Right? Should be advocating, unfortunately, for them to find somewhere better. that's not a good place to try to raise families. Congenital malformations and heart diseases are brutal. So that earthquake we covered, Shimane or something, nuclear plant in Japan, that hasn't gone away. This is a video of that. Now, we showed some screen captures. I wasn't sure, but there you're looking at the same picture. This is pretty old and, more importantly, brittle containments. And the fuel is brittle too, right? So it's getting a daylight shaken out. And because it's such a shallow, right, when you get the heavier motions, you get a bigger top motion. When everything's already brittle, we're in for a nasty surprise. Despite a powerful earthquake that visibly shook a nuclear plant in western Japan, its owner says is working as normal. That's not normal. Look at that. Let's play that again. That's close. That's the nuclear plant too. So that's a nuclear plant site. So they're on a fault line that was discovered in 2006. Anything happens in nuclear, everybody's stocks immediately nosedive straight into the earth. So they have to cover up every accident that they ever have. And that's what they've been doing since Fukushima. They had major earthquakes up in Akito Island, right, the most northerly island in Japan, where the landslides, all the payloads and all the mountains slid down, not just like halfway or something, but all the way, and buried houses and farmers' fields and everything else. An earthquake with a magnitude of 6.2 hit the plant, folks. That's something else we got to keep our eye on, because this is clearly not over. Prime Minister candidate sparks controversy after claim to buy 10 nuclear warheads. The nuclear industry was loving it. They'll probably give it to him for free anyway now. Yeah, that's okay. We'll give it to you on that. Just tell him George sent you. Just tell him George sent you. To strengthen Thailand's security against global power. You can't blame them. Like, you know, it's not going to protect you, right? The industry is way too sneaky for that. You promised buried in plain sight how thorium, India's darling, turned into a big flop. I'm saying that now for as long as I can remember. Like thorium can be converted to uranium, which is a 233, which is a fission product. So it can be used for, and it's not India. There's nothing clean about any type of nuclear. Nuclear is just bizarrely dirty in every facet of it, and splitting atoms for millions of years once you put it through a chain reaction. It's splitting atoms into your environment that nothing on the planet has an atom trigger to defend against. That's some sad times. We got smoke rises from the Fukushima Daiichi Unit 1 in 2011. It's not smoke, it's fuel pools. Atomizing and aerosoling the fuel. So every particle is splitting atoms for millions of years. It's distributed all over the world now. And this was interesting though. 2,313 died in the prefecture. In addition to the 19,500 that were killed by the earthquake or the tsunami. So what are they talking about? What the hell are they actually talking about, I wonder? So have they included 2,300 people that died of radioactive fallout on top of the 19,500 that they say died from the tsunami and earthquake? Right? That's a nice way to slip it in there. 2,313 died in the prefecture. And so they just conflated that with Fukushima and smoke. That's quite the interesting statement. I got to put that in my what the freak pile. Nothing says crazy quite like nuclear, does it? Nuclear plant safety review halted over fears of faked earthquake data. It shows you this picture. It's a couple of days ago, right? Reactor 4. I like that picture though because it gives you two angles. There's actually 4 angles though. Let me find the other 2 just for make sure it covers all the bases. Because otherwise, what's the point, right? So there's all 4 sides of Reactor 4. The fuel pool and reactor cores were at the top of the buildings. I'll show you where they were too. They're about 150 feet above the stump over there, which is Reactor 4, where they're claiming to be. And maybe that's easier for you. They're claiming to be 150 feet above the stump over there, 160 feet above the stump. Don't worry, nuclear totally safe. They wouldn't lie to you. They don't know how to tell you the truth, so how could you lie to you? Kilometer, the earthquakers. That's such a confusing thing, isn't it? I get so confused with it. Clearly. I get confused. He added that every time I heard the pro-nuclear speaking. He added the estimated maximum seismic ground motion the plant could face during an earthquake may have been underestimated. Overestimated. The government is now pushing to revive nuclear power to reduce the reliance on imported fossil fuel to meet soaring electricity demand driven by artificial intelligence and data centers. Which are 2 different places, by the way. It's 2 different businesses. They need each other, of course. They need the data for the artificial intelligence to work. Neptunium-237, extremely radioactive particle. Neptunium-237 is an extremely radioactive particle. Why ain't that there? Hang on. See, a 4-year-old school kid was just reported for being racist. against the invaders. You never know, man. See? The system got total control over everybody if they're getting over stuff like that. Oh. Apologize. Hang 1 second for me. I think it's 237. We'll get it. Oh, I haven't got you on my page. Neptunium-237. Never, my glasses. What was Neptunium down there? No. Oh, yeah, right there. Look. Chink. 237. It's got a real long half-life, if I remember. Yeah, it's 2.14 million years. 2.14 million years, and it's extremely radioactive. So a lot of time the industry likes to tell you anything with a long half-life is harmless, like uranium-238, right? They'll use that. But it's not true. If it's anthropogenic man-made, then it retains its power. That's why you're able to boil water for millions of homes and businesses. But then, 12, 14 months later, you got to take 1/3 of that fuel and put it into a pool where it's still splitting the same atoms to power homes, but instead there's no containment, so it's released to your environment. Now, every one of them are surrounded by farms, except for a couple. And it's a very prolific isotope. And so is bear with me. So is Neptunium-239, which is also covered the whole planet. It decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. There's 10 decays. So whereas Neptunium-237 takes 2.14 million years to decay to another isotope, which which is 233 uranium, which can be used in thorium reactors, right? The Neptunium-239 decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. I'm sorry. 2.356 days. So 2.4 days, kind of. So there's 6 carries to a 5, 5 carries to a 3. So, yeah, 2.5 days. Not quite 2.5 days. It decays to plutonium-239. Plutonium-239, it's got a 7.9 year half, or I'm sorry, 239. 24,000 year half-life. And then decays back to a real useful 235 uranium, back to a fission product. Anyway. The reason it's important is because plutonium. Let's just hang on. Let me break that down right quick for you. Is there such a thing as quick when it comes to doing what we're doing? Plutonium was used on 144 beagle dogs, a single monodispersal inhalation. And tumors of the lung, skeleton, and liver occurred beginning with 3 years. Bone tumors, 93 dogs were the most common cause of death out of 144 dogs. And then lung tumors and liver tumors. So if you get the plutonium, if you get the plutonium in you, you got 3 tumors to look forward to. And the bone tumors are the most popular way to be taken out, right? Which is a terrible way to go. And on top of that, they say the findings of dogs similar to dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans that were accidentally exposed. But it was discovered that the human kidneys are at least 50 times less efficient than the animal's kidneys at removing the plutonium. So you're 50 times more likely. But even worse, the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod, this is the same study institution. This is Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, which is the United States Navy. So Dr. Raymond Gilmed, he's one of the notable anti-beagle dog and puppy academics. And they call the place Loveless, but when you hear the name, you don't see it. It's Loveless, and that's the appropriate name for those dogs, isn't it? It's loveless what they do to them. It's just a terrible thing to do to something. It's torture, right? It's barbaric torture, too. It's the same stuff Hitler was doing, allegedly. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct of radioactive nuclear fuel rod. Forget the alpha, right? Forget its alpha for a second. It's the major byproduct. Not iodine, not cesium, not uranium, not plutonium, but curium isotopes, hence the name curium for nuclear meltdowns, for a runaway chain reaction. The products it's that for the fuel pools too, right? The fuel pools are hemorrhaging that. And put it in proximity, curium is nasty, man. Curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. So it's brutal on animals and birds and fish. 8 million species. It's brutal plants, it's brutal to trees, it's brutal to pollinators, it's brutal to the biota, to the fungus, the bacteria, the very foundation of life on land. 244 in particular is nasty lifetime too. $244. I'll bring you up here. Curium, which is I think right there. 244. Got a half-life of 18 years. It's nasty. You need lead shielding 20 times thicker. So that's 181 year life it'll be around. But because it's the biggest byproduct, and because there's so much of it, not only that's going to decay into plutonium 240. Which is a 6,561 years, so 60,000 years later. And it's the major byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods. And remember, your planet got, just because this study's on Neptunian, don't mean you haven't got all these other isotopes in that. So this is why all the whales are showing up severely emaciated. German president says the United States is destroying the world order. Yeah, because they had a cushy life. They didn't have to work for nothing. Everything was... But now they have AI, and so they don't need all of these bootlickers anymore. They got to get rid of them too. Has strongly... And they got robots, man, that are... Wow. We're in real trouble. We got a year or two between their AI, the data centers AI, and the robots... and an extinction event, all converging, and the system doesn't want to lose power. And you've seen how ruthless they were in Japan, what they done to the Japanese. Right? They're moving back into the nuclear wasteland. It's just ruthless, hateful stuff. Strongly criticized the United States foreign policy under Donald Trump and urged the world not to let the world order disintegrate into a den of robbers where the unscrupulous take whatever they want. This talking about Venezuela. The former foreign minister said global democracy was being attacked as never before. Democracy is where 51% can take away the rights of 49%. So the Bill of Rights, the Constitutions, the Magna Carta were based upon a republic where everybody had the same rights and you couldn't take your rights away. The referendums were where you would change some stuff, but you wouldn't change your actual rights. You wouldn't take rights away. You wouldn't, the slavery law, the idea of the slavery law was to use it as an instrument, right, to give corporations some of the human rights, which is what we recognize today as corporate personhood. And so, like, if Facebook commits a crime, Mark Zuckerberg don't go to jail. The shareholders can't go to jail. And so there's no incentive not to commit the crime if there's a profit to be made. And then by proxy, their doctrine, their charter for their corporation or corporate personhood is to do exactly that. If it's going to make a profit, well, you can, and you're not paying state, federal, local taxes anyway. That money's going offshore because you're corporate personhood. Then you can take some of that money to pay any fines. And we call it a kickback, but that's actually how it works, right? The former foreign minister said global democracy, and democracy was not a global thing. Democracy doesn't exist in the Bill of Rights or the Magna Carta or the Constitution. It's a made-up word. Democracy is where 51% can take away the rights of 49 of the rest of the people. 51% of the stupid doesn't make it right. Then there's the breakdown of values by our most important partner, the United States of America, which helped build this world order. Yeah, empire building. Things have changed. You got an extinction event. You got AI, which is a wicked, brutal tool used against us. It's the ultimate tool. But they're rushing it, right? I don't see them being able to. They're close, but they're not close enough to make it work for the way they want it to. Active intervention was needed in threatening situation in countries such as Brazil and India must be convinced to protect the world order, must be convinced. So let's see how I done. They sent me my monthly update for my channel. Boy, oh boy, it's going to be good. Here's how your channel did last month. I can't wait. So excited. From December the 1st to December the 31st, the last month of last year, how did I do? I got 22 new uploads. That's pretty damn good. I do 5 shows a week usually. Slipped in an extra one. I got 2 subscribers. Holy shit, eh? Wow. How the hell did they ever sneak in there? And I got 4,400 views. That's incredible. I work like a dog every day in the hopes that I can make the world better. That's a bit of a crime. Sue me. 2 subscribers. It'll take me 300 years to get to 2,000 subscribers at the rate I'm growing. Michael Burry, so don't worry about me, nuclear industry, even though you do. Mikey Burry calls for a $1 trillion nuclear build-out to power the AI. And says, is there any hope to keep up with China? If we don't get better AI in China, or better nuclear in China, or better ships in China, or better airplanes in China, better cars in China. The world's gonna fall down. It's all gonna come apart, Dana. So our only hope is to spend $1 trillion on something to enslave every man, woman, child, and any species that manages to survive post-Fukushima. It won't be the whales, that's for sure. To fast-track a $1 trillion nuclear power and grid expansion plan to power the surging AI-driven electricity demand. To power the surging AI-driven, they don't have the extra, like, it's coming online everywhere, and we don't have the extra grid to power it. And so everybody's electricity rates are going skyrocketing. And the government, of course, is going to tax you on that, too. Just rub it in your face. And I got another die-off video ready to go. That's the worst thing you can ever say. It pushes nuclear power, which the small modular reactors don't exist, but this is probably not meant to actually happen. It's meant to artificially at the same time as Facebook, at the same time as the 3 small modular reactor companies, the same time as the uranium stock, Sprout Physical Uranium Trust, and then this guy pushing for $1 trillion investment, which will get to the average person who doesn't understand how this works. That looks like a pretty good combination. Right? It looks like you're going to get a big return on your money from what the uranium investment Ponzi schemers are pushing. It's the only hope of getting enough power to keep up with China. Gotta have a boogeyman. China will get you, Russia will. Newman also dismissed fears of an AI bubble, arguing that the demand is real, but power constraints threatens progress. We cannot energize the data centers we will need. But you don't have small modular reactors, and you can spend all the money, and you do. They get whatever money they want, right, to try to create the small modular reactor fusion. The government has to give it to them because it's nuclear industry, I guess. If you control your universities and you control all of your media by proxy and all your key government positions by proxy, so geothermal could actually do it. How geothermal can support data center growth? Oh, that's the U.S. Department of Energy site itself. You can have that. You can have it up and running in no time. But if you invest in nuclear, you'll never have it. You'll never have the proper solution, right? Because nuclear is just, it's in its dying throes, and it's drowning. It'll take down anybody gets close to it, which is planet Earth in this case. Data center shares of total annual U.S. electricity consumption already more than doubled. From 2018 to 2023, it's projected to grow between 6.7% and 12%. Boy, that's a big discrepancy, by the way. By 2028, in 2 years' time. 12% of the energy in your country. So, right, and they got to get the power from somewhere, so they got to take it from you and claim that, well, don't worry, the prices will go down when we get a few of these small, modular, massive reactors running. It's just, they can't get anything working. They're just idiots. They haven't come up with a new design. They haven't created anything new since the original 1900 designs. Everybody's still working on those patents. Well, that's the foundation, right? Geothermal technologies, and if you don't, then the releases is so great. Like Canada has got away with the CANDU reactors because the country was corrupted during the Manhattan Project, and they never lost that power. They maintained that power and that monetary, right? I was doing a little bit of an experiment yesterday. I was out screen capturing YouTubers that do live streams, got all kinds of people in the stream. They don't have a clue. They don't know nothing. And they're just all these comments, and everybody's donating to them, and everybody's buying their hats and their shirts and sweaters and jackets. And, like, it was just all of a sudden, and I was like 2 hours into it, but all of a sudden, all I could find alongside me was these bloggers in the little, the window pane, right, of the videos, YouTube videos. And it's just, as I scrolled down, it was an endless stream. It was endless. And I was like, holy shit. I'm just going to quit right there for driving myself nuts. But all of them were look at me people, right? Especially the women. Look at me, I bought this, I bought that, look at me, I bought this, look at me, I bought that. They got 100,000, 50,000, 70,000. The videos are up for 20 minutes, they got an extra 50, 60,000. And all their pictures of them with a great big stupid smile on their face. Whatever new coat or shirt or jacket they got, or tie they got. But that's the whole idea, create all of these distractions, I guess, right? And these people are happy to post everything, so I'm already painted, right? So I'll never, no matter, let's say I walked away from nuclear and I started doing the same thing, right? I still wouldn't get any more views. The industry hates my guts. As they should. Truth's a powerful thing. Geothermal energy high capacity factor, generally about 90% efficient. Nuclear is only 30% at best. Allows geothermal power plants to operate 24 hours a day with steady output all the time. Not nearly all the time, but all the time. There's no reason to stop them. You can build a backup right alongside of it. If you need to do maintenance 30 years down the road, just switch it on. Geothermal technologies offer two solutions to the challenges of meeting and managing data center power and cooling demands. Their energy high capacity factor. Enhanced geothermal systems, other next generation technology provide versatile support for data centers' high energy demand by removing or reducing power plants' locations limitations. Because you can put geothermal anywhere. Wherever you tell you, just dig down and tap in geothermal. I don't know, stupid, Dana. No, it's not. I like to think that there's lots of us out there doing the best we can, and that'll be enough to bring the world to its senses. But we got an extinction event that we can't deny no longer. So they can also use the cold water and inject it back into the earth to cool it down once it heats up. A data center needs enormous amount of cooling, right? And that's usually water. Data centers are going to have large megawatt scale cooling demands to keep their servers operational, especially in times of high usage. Reducing the power required to meet peak cooling demands can mean avoiding the need to build new power plant capacity. So I think, like, they had built a couple of experimental data centers, very high capacity, use enormous amount of energy and resources. But then they were able to understand the power of their system and how they can now become, they're always, they seem totally, the entire legacy history of these industries is to control the population for some reason. They're just fixated on and being the stupid, when there's so many better things they could have done. California has 650 active geothermal wells that produce energy. But like, the problem is lots of geothermal companies out there, but they don't get any funding, right? The nuclear industry is too busy stealing all the glory, and they're never going to come to fruition. It's just an easy grab from the government. They need to exclude everything else. Everything else needs to be painted as evil. And then, of course, you can't even mention the word geothermal. It does, but very rarely does that trickle into the conversation, right? So they're building 600 co-op units in Ontario, Canada, Scarborough. And they're going to use geothermal. Even though they're surrounded by nuclear. Now, Doug Ford, 3 years ago, closed down 730 wind and solar farms in Ontario, and then announced that they were going to do refurbishments of all the nuclear power plants. It's absurd. 6.2 quake rattles Japan's Shima prefecture. No major damage reported. But can you trust the industry? Industry can't take another black eye. And you can't quantify these assertions with a big facilities like this for quite a long time. It takes many, many weeks or even a month to quantify that type of assertion, right? These reactors are old and brittle, too. Brittle is from the neutron bombardment, which means, and they're running at high pressure, 1,000 pounds, 2,000 pounds. And so if they're brittle and they're running at these high pressures, well, you know what your tire looks like when it blows up. Imagine what that'll look like. Oh, that was a hydrogen explosion. Oh, no, that was a pressure. Fukushima, by the way, was a pressure explosions. I worry, man. I worry so much that we're not going to have. We're running out of time. We need to get in their faces. And the world is asleep. The Japanese military is currently conducting an aerial damage assessment in the affected areas. The Japanese military is conducting aerial damage assessments, landslides and everything else. And then they put there, of course, the country has lots of earthquakes. So what are you doing with nuclear? Why are you building them on fault lines for it? What was wrong with you? This is absurdness. This whale is missing 350,000 pounds. He's missing 60,000 pounds, 65,000. Well, he's missing 70,000 pounds over there, the prize whale. The gray whale is just, it's unbelievable, eh? I just ran a picture too. I had all that other stuff cleaned up, color corrected. I thought I must have grabbed the wrong one when I was putting Humpback and Blue Whale there and Bride's Whale and Grey Whale. I mean, my goodness, right? All the species are showing up. It was 3 days ago. All of these are this year. This is madness, right? Say it weighs 6 tons, but it should weigh, say it weighs 20,000 pounds, 24,000 pounds. It should weigh 380,000 pounds. The only reason it weighs that much is because it's so long. It's like 100 foot long almost. And there's, the bone and everything. But this prize whale from a couple of months ago, and now this one from a couple of days ago, and we already know in 2016 they're all emaciated. All the gray whales are starving to death. All Humpback whales are starving to death. All the blue whales are starving to death. The prize whales and the grey whales, it break my heart, man. This is crazy stuff. The universal nuclear payment will reshuffle the cards for electricity bills in 2026. So you drove up the price of electricity, and if it hits a certain number, you got to kick some back to the consumers. Did you get any idea how crazy that statement is? They got you taxed to the point where you got to work 100 days before you make a nickel for yourself. And now they're just going to take more money from you and then give you back a percentage of that. It's just another way of taxing you. The quarter new mechanism rests on a seemingly simple idea where electricity market prices exceed, say, 78 euros or francs or sterlings per megawatt hour. A portion of the excess revenues collected by the states, these amounts must then be redistributed to the consumers as financial compensation on their bills. That doesn't mean it's going to benefit you, though. Oklo. Every week we get a headline like this, and then a few days later you get the opposite headline, and it just does that every 2 weeks. Why nuclear stocks just had their best day in months. Jumped 15% on Monday as they announced a couple of $1 billion investment in uranium. And now, of course, you got Sprout's Uranium Physical Trust has bought up a whole bunch of physical uranium, creating artificial demand for that. A $2.7 billion uranium funding program sparked a rally across nuclear energy stocks. But it's not going to manifest into dividends for the stockholders. But to the unsuspecting investor, it looks good. U.S. nuclear test decisions remain uncertain. Optimism about nuclear energy is rising again. Will it last? This is Carleigh Energy, another small modular reactor. Fake country. Work, now this one though is worrisome. Work has started on a first of a kind underground nuclear reactor. This is the stupidest thing imaginable. It's hard to comprehend they're actually doing it. Deep Fission, which is a notorious scumbag startup, has begun preparing to install a small nuclear reactor a mile underground. So originally they were going to put nuclear waste down to the ground. That's what these creepy creatures are. It's a daughter and a father, but in the nuclear industry, created this little company. And they got the stupidest idea, simple idea, is they're going to just dig a hole and put all the nuclear waste in the hole and seal it in. And dig another hole and put all kinds of nuclear waste down there and seal that in. That's their solution. There's a lot of problems with it, though. The fuel melts down, and it will eventually anyway. And when you're doing it everywhere, you can't guarantee geology everywhere is the same. And because you haven't done it and haven't got away with it. I'm going to put a small nuclear reactor a mile underground. When they're finished with it, it's crazy, right? It's not a conventional reactor at all, right? It's kind of like Enrico Fermi's first chain reaction setup. It's going to be located at a former U.S. Army ammunition facility. Were they using depleted uranium there, I wonder? Munitions. By placing a reactor deep below underground, the company aims to improve safety. Improve it. and simplify long-term waste containment. It's quite worrisome that people like this actually exist. A 30-inch wide shaft, 1 mile deep. And dig a hole in the ground, like the rest of them. Compact fission reactors installed at the bottom, submerged in water. Heat from the reactor turns to water. So you have an uncontrolled chain reaction with no rods to stop it. And then the steam will rise naturally to the surface to spin turbines and generate electricity. Once cooled, the water condenses and flows back down the shaft. But the temperatures you're talking about that are possible, they're guaranteed to melt it apart. So their version is they'll just fill it in and dig another hole, not too far away, and do it again. They couldn't care less. They're like the worst bad guy you can imagine. Venezuelan crisis sparks a global debate over nuclear deterrent. You got Thailand saying they're going to get 10 nuclear weapons. And so South Korea hasn't attacked anybody in 150 years. Or 120 years, is it? It was that they were occupied by Japan for 50 years, and then Nagasaki, Hiroshima happened, they had to leave. So the United Nations went there and flattened every community, every village, every town, every city, and the entire country with napalm on top of that, which was attack upon, was collective punishment, right? And you had millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans. To get 10,000 bad guys. Been doing that forever. Like, so when France and United States military and Britain's military are all condemning North Korea, they got military conflicts worldwide going on, but he doesn't. That country didn't. They built that so they can try to get back into a society. They've been ostracized now for 70-something years by UN and 50 years by Japan through occupation, over 120 years. What would any country end up like after all that time? Especially after United Nations invaded it and murdered their country. Advances in silicon carbon. I lost track. Honor power to keep up a nuclear reactor-sized battery in a slim profile. So I wasn't sure what the hell they were talking about. I don't know. I didn't follow up on it. I don't know if they're... I was worried they might be using some radioactive isotopes or something, right? So I don't know if that's the case or not, now, mind you, so I can't say for sure, but it was something I got to look into a bit more. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds established Nuclear Energy Task Force. Yeah, well, if you want to get elected, that's the quickest way to do it. Plans for new facility in United Kingdom to store waste from old nuclear subs. Is that United Kingdom or USA? I can't even remember. Demonstrator project has already seen all the low-level radioactive waste removed, and the next stage is removal of the reactor pressure vessel. Oh, yeah, I think it is an American story. Or is it? No, that's United Nations, or UK, isn't it? Yeah, it's United Kingdom. Once removed, the intermediate level radioactive waste will be taken to an interim storage at Kepenhurst, Chiltshire, for eventually transferred to permanent underground facilities at the site that's still to be chosen. That don't exist, like they've been saying now for 80 years. Oh, no, we're going to put it there, but when we get around to it. Work at splitting atoms into the environment forever and ever in some fuel pool. Workers at the dockyard are currently cutting up and dismantling the HMS Her Majesty's steamship Swift Shore, one of the 7 decommissioned boats that have been laid up there for decades. These are nuclear submarines. They were sitting there polluting the environment, and they will be for many decades to come because they don't have a repository. So it's going to be splitting atoms directly into the environment through the fuel pools. That's going to be stored in, right? They're hoping 90% of the vessel can be salvaged and the metal turned into razor blades and tin cans. These people are maniacs, eh? Still better than kids' toys, which I know they've done before. Gosford youth invited to shape the future of nuclear waste, because they don't know nothing about nuclear. Opportunities open those age 16. Disgusting, eh? The nuclear industry really is a predator. So any kids that are interested about a geological repository are stupid enough to get lulled into complacency, you can go there and get all the heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory problems you could ever want. Bring it home and give it to your kids. Industry doesn't want educated people because they won't work there, first off. And second off, you're going to get sick if you work there. What they think, priority will give them to young people. This is some of the victims there they're planning on. Oh, you can make lots of money. You got to save it all because you got to need it for chemotherapy and radiation, which is guaranteed to finish you off. Transport will be provided for those who need it. It could take around 15 years. So this story was simply about making nuclear stocks look good again, right? They don't have the fuel for these reactors. They don't have the reactors. So they won't have the whales. It's madness. You got all the whales, the biggest creatures on the planet, showing up emaciated. They weren't fighting for it. Well, the future generation. In just a few years, generations in just a few years, the people in just a few years are going to come to the realization that we got an extinction event because the food chain got broken. And when they look at it, it's going to be right after Fukushima, directly, immediately, specifically right after Fukushima's nuclear meltdowns. And they melted down. And then, all of these people pretending that they're on top, all the medias, it won't be just these people, it'll be the medias, the producers, the editors. They all got an incentive. They're all in on the lie, pretending they're on top of buildings. They're all in on that lie in the first place. They got to keep the lie alive. They got to keep reinforcing the lie to protect what they've done, because the world wakes up and sees this. What do you think is going to happen? The world starts rioting because they want these people dealt with properly. Nuclear industry will destroy everything and still won't give up. They don't give a fuck about anything, including themselves on top of that. Yeah. Don't worry though, they fixed it with they plugged the leak with a mixture of sawdust and newspaper and concrete and liquid glass, for goodness sakes. Whoever wrote that story, Natalie Chover, plugged with liquid glass. So, of course, you go near it, your organs melt right away. This is on the 15th. But how evil do you got to be to put out stuff like that, right? Mark Zuckerberg got to do what he got to do. for the nuclear industry. You got to realize reactor 6, it might be melted too, because why did they release these pictures? Of them completely redacted. And why did they wait 10 years to release those pictures? And this picture here, which is the common spent fuel pool, that's common spent fuel pool. Across the street is reactor 4. Remember reactor 4? That pretty one over right there? Do you really think the fuel pool right across the street is intact? Do you really think it's pixelated out because... So you're talking about 36 reactor cores were lost. Each of them equal to 100 Chernobyls. So each building is almost 1,000 Chernobyls. That's why you see stuff like this where they're pretending they're on top of the building. Because if that information goes out, people then knows why all their loved ones are dropping dead in the streets. Why everybody's showing up. You had children in Australia showing up with dementia. For goodness sakes. We still got to cover the crazies. We still haven't finished off that show. Let's go back to the poll for 1 minute. Oh yeah, poll. Oh yeah, we're gonna play that song after. My mistake, sorry. I didn't have my headphones on, I couldn't hear it. I didn't mean to click on it right that second. This is really important. Think about, there's about a study, you can link to it there. Stability of radio cesium. Remember all the isotopes I showed you? The idea of the study is so you don't look at that stuff. You don't want to think about neptunium and plutonium and xenon-133 or the iodine-131, 132, 133, 129, and these enormous radioactive fallouts, right? The 500 billion atoms per kilogram in Tokyo. The annihilation of the species. They want you to think about all these isotopes of cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels. This is 20 days in, huh? A radioactive fallout. All the isotopes I show you are all in the one plume. There's not just, even though this is a plume of plutonium, I can show you plumes of all the other isotopes. This is really happening. This is the real deal. We're in real trouble. You gotta grow up and deal with it. You can find this song and the videos and the links below. Right there. Same link I showed you earlier. Have a great night, great day tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.
Settled in place. Needles first, then bark, then sapwood. Patterns consistent across plots. The system no longer migrating quickly, just circulating within bounds. By the 6th year, the curve's flattened. Variance fell inside expectation. Not absence, not reduction. Only balance replacing motion. Hardwood uptake lag captures what adaptation costs. When tolerance replaces resilience, no coefficient